President Biden took aim at Donald Trump during a rally in Las Vegas yesterday. He urged Democrats to support him in the state's primary this week and warned that a second Trump presidency would be a, quote, nightmare for the country. Well, on Saturday, Biden cruised to an easy victory in the South Carolina Democratic primary. He earned 96% of the vote, but, the turnout was low. Just 4% of registered voters actually showed up. So for more on this and the upcoming GOP primary in South Carolina, I want to bring in CBS News campaign reporter Nidia Cavazos. Hey, Nidia, it's good to see you. Before we talk about, the week ahead with Biden, let's talk about South Carolina. Obviously no surprise that he would win the primary. He didn't have any sort of significant competitors in any way, but the party was looking to see who was coming out, what kind of support he had. What does the outcome of this primary signal?
Good morning, Anne-Marie. Happy to be joining you this morning. And, well, like you said, Biden cruised to victory here in South Carolina, and his victory comes to no surprise to anyone. This wasn't necessarily being contested. There was no doubt about that. He earned more than 96% of the votes here. But what this primary was truly a test for, the first in the nation for the Democratic Party, was a test for the party's strength, where Biden was standing amongst black voters and overall voter enthusiasm. And it was a test to that. And like you said, there was a low voter turnout here in South Carolina for this Democratic Party. Only 4% of the total state's registered voters ended up coming out and supporting either candidate. And if we were to compare these results to 2020, or the voter turnout to 2020, for example, where over 500,000 people ended up participating, even in the middle of a pandemic. So this goes great lengths to show what this means, that many people chose to sit out. But amongst the reasons why South Carolina ended up being first in the nation as the primary was, in fact, to help black voters. And so this was the strength for Biden this past Saturday. But as I've mentioned, there isn't much enthusiasm here. And when we talk about a low voter turnout on Saturday, this essentially can translate to people who were choosing to sit this one out are able to participate in the Republican primary coming up on February 24th. So essentially this can translate into a vote for Donald Trump or for Nikki Haley.
Well, speaking of Nikki Haley and the Republican primary in South Carolina, that's where she's putting a lot of her attention. And yes, there have been calls for her to drop out, that the path forward is super narrow for her. Despite that, she's raising a lot of money. And as you know, that's the one thing that a candidate needs to stay in the race.
That's exactly right. Money here isn't necessarily representing an issue for Nikki Haley's campaign. And just yesterday, I was able to confirm with her campaign that they were able to raise over $16 million in just 1 month. This was, of course, in January, and this includes over $11 million coming in from grassroots supporters. They were also able to add in more than 60,000 new donors just in the month of January. And this comes amid Iowa results and even New Hampshire's results. And what this essentially means is that, of course, money isn't necessarily an issue here. This means that her campaign is able to continue, but this is also despite the growing calls for her to be able to drop out. It's calls from the RNC, from the GOP party, from state legislators here in South Carolina, and even from among Trump allies. They're calling on her to drop out and just officially endorse former President Donald Trump so that he can have an easier path to clinch onto the party's nomination. But Haley has made it clear over and over that she's not going anywhere. And, she's able to express that she has support. And what we've also been able to see here on the ground, just last night, I was at a rally on Daniel Islands in South Carolina with Nikki Haley, and there were over 1,200 people in attendance. And so, of course, when Haley comes out, she addresses the crowd size. But this has been a continuous pattern that we've seen ever since we got to South Carolina after New Hampshire. We've been able to see that the venues are always packed. They're always at capacity. And so this shows that people are still looking for a Trump alternative. And not only are we seeing it in the crowd sizes, but we're also seeing it in terms of the money that the money flowing to Haley's campaign. But of course, her campaign is also saying that they're not oblivious to the fact that Donald Trump continues to be the front runner and continues to hold grip on the party's Republican voters.
That's really interesting, Nidia. Thank you very much.